playing ball today. Okay, so if you could, next slide, please, Maddie. So today we're going to talk about AI and social media. We're going to talk a bit about the negatives and the benefits. Threads versus X. So I know obviously there's a lot of questions about threads happening. We're also going to talk about platform algorithm updates and new emerging platforms, and then we're going to look ahead to 2024 and the kind of things that we should be doing on social media going forward. We've got questions at the end, but obviously if anybody wants to ask questions as we go along, that's absolutely fine. Pop them in the box and we will field those questions. So AI has obviously been around for quite a long time. But it's kind of ramped up in the last couple of years. So there have been AI uses in various different forms for a few years now, but ChatGPT, which is the generative AI platform, launched at the end of last year. And then since then, everything has kind of exploded in that sort of area, and particularly on social media as well. So AI tools for social media can be used to create images and videos. They can be used to craft captions. They're analyzing data and performance, content and strategy ideation, and paid ad management, which is obviously just some of the things you can use it for. So there are many benefits to AI with social media, and I think the main one is it's saving people time, and which in turn saves money. So, it's optimizing people's workflows. So, automation really helps save time. So you can optimize your social media posting schedule. And we can do this with Hootsuite, but there are other social media management tools out there that do this. It can help you craft captions, especially if you're really stuck as to what to write. It can monitor conversations for you. So Hootsuite does this, but again, there are other tools that do that. And they can also allow you to tweak your content and your strategy based on analyzing your audience. So again, something that Hootsuite does, but again, there are other tools that do that. And essentially all these things, they kind of allow you to reach your goals faster because you're kind of spending less time doing a lot of the manual stuff, and it kind of frees you up to do bigger picture things. So, sorry, did somebody say something then?
Okay.
Cool. So it's really great if you're stuck for content ideas, because lots of social media management tools have the ability to kind of help you come up with creation. So it really boosts your creativity as well. And then AI is actually not in terms of sort of social media managers, but in terms of the actual platforms themselves. They are using AI algorithms to kind of identify things like hate speech and bullying and violence a lot faster on the platforms than they would be able to with just a human behind it. So this is still not perfect because there are still issues with that, but it's something that AI is definitely helping. So one of the benefits of AI is on social media is the social media post generation, the caption generation. So this is just an example I pulled from Hootsuite. So like I said, there are other tools out there, but this is the one that we use at Conscious. So you can see here you've got options to repurpose your top performing posts. So I'm always kind of advocating to repurpose content that's done really well on social media, so it's got lots of engagement. If it's got lots of engagement once, then it'll probably get lots of engagement again, so it's worth repurposing it into another format. It gives you options to start from scratch, so it can create a new caption for you. You just put some information in it and it kind of creates that for you. It can help you with post ideas based on a topic. It can also turn web content into posts and getting your calendar holiday ready. So again, things like Christmas, it can kind of help you come up with ideas for a holiday campaign. And then obviously on the right hand side, it tells you what kind of posts you want the caption for. So it will tailor this to different platforms. It's still saying tweet and Twitter, but they haven't updated that yet. It can also help you simplify a complex topic, which I thought was interesting for particularly for law firms, because sometimes there is a lot of legal jargon, and not the average person on the street isn't going to necessarily understand certain things. So that's quite interesting to use if you're trying to kind of break it down so that the average person could kind of understand. And you can tell people about a product, but obviously that could be a service for a law firm. And then the problem agitate solution post is interesting. So it can help you point people to your product as a solution to their problem. But obviously, again, that would be your services. But that's just some of the things that Hootsuite has on offer. And so I just picked out here as an example a previous conscious post that we that did really well. It was about us being flexified, so we're being recognised as a flexible employer. And I just hit create caption, and it's given me these 3 different options. I think you can actually press the button again and it will create new ones for you if you're not happy with those. But it just shows you the different styles. So we've got one that's very much just a bulk of text. There's different hashtags, but there's also one that's kind of broken up with emojis and stuff. So these are really great if you're not quite sure how to repurpose something, but you want to share it again. And it kind of, you don't have to sort of, you can create posts just with that, but you can also then edit it so it kind of sounds a bit more like you as well. So it just kind of helps improve workflow a little bit, especially if you're very short on time. And then the only actual social media channel that I can see that has native AI on it is LinkedIn, which actually might be quite useful for a few law firms. So I just put in a random command. So I just said, I want to share with my followers my upcoming social media webinar on social media in 2023. I will be talking about AI, new platforms, algorithm updates, and forecasting for 2024. And then it's on this date and time on Zoom. And then on the right, this is what it's generated for me. So, I mean, it's not miles away from what I put in anyway. So, you know, I could have probably done that myself, but it just gives you an idea of what it does. And it's added some hashtags at the bottom there for me. Now, this is still in beta form. So at the bottom, it's asking you to share feedback on how you think this tool is working. So it might be that you've created a post and it's completely not what you've asked it to do, or the hashtags might be a bit off. So you know, there's an option there to share the feedback, because the more people feedback, the more sophisticated these tools will become. So if you've not used it yet, you might be it might be a good idea to kind of have a try. You don't have to share it, but you can just see what it generates and see if it helps you in any way. And this is just something silly that I did as an example, just to show you how you can use AI image generators. So we at Conscious, we use an image and video creation tool called Canva. And there are free versions and paid versions. We have the paid version. And it's now, I think this is only in the last few months or so, it's added an AI image generator. So essentially, it's the same as a caption generator. You just enter a command and it generates images for you based on what you put in. So I was thinking, you know, what does Conscious, you know, what do I think about when I think about Conscious? So I put, you know, Tilly, David's chocolate Labrador, the colour orange, obviously, in our colourful office. So I stuck in a chocolate Labrador, wearing an orange jumper and glasses, sitting in a modern office with orange decorations. And this, you know, it gave me lots of options. And then if you're not happy with it, you can create it again. Now, you might be thinking, why do I need that? But there are times when you are looking for a stock image. So Canva has a massive library of stock imagery. And you might be looking for something to add to your blog or social media or whatever it might be. And you can't find just the right thing. So there have been times when I've been looking for something and it's not quite right, like it's Americanized, or, you know, and I can't find what I'm looking for. And that time spent is obviously money. So this kind of thing can really help you, you know, cut out the middleman, and you can actually get exactly what you need in a very short amount of time. So yeah, that's there are some rules with this. Sorry, there are some rules with this. So Canva is suggesting that you let people know that the image is AI generated. So if you're then going to put this out publicly, so if I was to share that on our Conscious social media, I would then disclose that this image was AI generated, so that people know, because I think transparency is really important, and I think we're gonna talk a bit more about that in a few slides time. So next slide, please, maybe. Yeah, so there are other benefits as well. So we've got Grammarly as another tool we use on Conscious. It's basically an AI glorified spell check tool. So, but it does so much more. So you can actually install it on most social media platforms. You can install it on Hootsuite. I'm not sure about other social media management tools, but might be worth checking. And you can also add it to emails and Word documents as well. So basically, it not only spell checks for you, but it helps improve your writing. So it will, look at the grammar, it will remove unnecessary words, and it's kind of, it even detects the tone. So on the right here, you can see that it's detected the tone. So if you're looking to kind of make sure your captions are fitting in with your tone of voice as a business, then the tone's really good. So if you're looking to write something that's quite serious in tone, but then the tone detected is, super happy, then maybe you need to rethink what you're writing. So that's really helpful as well, and makes sure that any mistakes are picked up before you put them out. And I think this is, sorry, Maddie, I think this is different to ChatGPT. So with ChatGPT, you are creating, you're putting in a prompt and then you're getting out a caption that you're then copying and pasting, which we don't recommend. But with Grammarly, it's your own words, it's your own tone of voice, your own content. So it's just improving that for you slightly with the use of AI. But there are obviously some negatives of AI and social media. It's still a relatively new technology in the grand scheme of things. And there are some flaws. So safety and privacy fears is quite a big one. So AI it relies on user data to learn. So basically it's fed information by people and the internet. But with any data that you put into these tools, that data is then at risk of being breached through data breaches. So there's that aspect of it, because there have been times where AI tools have been easily hacked, which is slightly terrifying. There are also concerns about mental health as well, particularly with young people who are using social media, because AI learning, so the algorithms are basically AI who are learning more about you as you're on social media platforms. So they then suggest more content that you like, and then that kind of pushes you to stay on the platform longer. And that's not necessarily healthy, particularly for young people. And the use of AI filters as well is having quite a negative impact on young people's self-esteem and body image. I think the Kardashians, for example, have got into quite a lot of trouble for heavily filtering and editing their bodies in images. So there are some issues with that. And I think there are a couple of platforms like TikTok and Instagram are sort of addressing this by making sure that creators label any AI generated content or any AI assisted content that it has been made with AI, so that people know, and that people don't get the idea that, oh, this is what the average person looks like, because it's not true. And then there's definitely inaccuracy and misinformation, and I've got a few horrible examples to show you in a second. So AI, again, like I said, it learns through the information that you feed it. So there are definitely going to be factual inaccuracies, and it's easy to spread misinformation. There are AI-powered bots and fake accounts that can spread misinformation. And in the past, that has happened around political campaigns, and that can potentially sway, election decisions. And then also deep fake videos and deep fake images are on the rise. So, people are creating deep fake videos and images, if you don't know, are images created of usually famous people, but they can just be a regular person, just doing things that they wouldn't normally be doing, or saying things that they wouldn't normally be saying. So they're quite literally putting words into people's mouths, which is slightly terrifying. If you're interested in this kind of thing, there's a show called Deepfake Neighbor Wars, which is on ITV, I think. And interestingly, there's a lot of celebrities who've been using that. And interestingly, none of them were informed about it, but none of them have any sort of legal standing as to, because there's no real legislation to protect people from it at the moment. Some cases might win, but I don't believe there's any sort of solid legislation around it. They're getting away with just using people's pictures and videos, and it's quite scary. And yeah, then there's also the issue of bias. So obviously, as humans, we can be quite biased. It's kind of inbuilt sometimes. And so because we are creating these AIs, then we may inadvertently create bias within the algorithms and the content generators. So there's been examples of AI being used in recruitment for recruitment purposes, who are automatically dismissing, women of a certain age or Black people, and it's not good. So there's definitely some issues with that. And there's also the potential for misuse. So AI bots can be used to guess passwords and hack accounts really easily. And obviously with the rise of deep fakes as well, AI-powered bot accounts can easily pretend to be somebody else on social media. And I think that has happened before. So yeah, there are some definite negatives out there. So I'm not sure if you can play that, Maddie. Can you try for me?
My best.
Or maybe we can go back to the beginning. Yeah.
Is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I'm not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
So yeah, that's just an example of a terrifyingly accurate deepfake of Morgan Freeman, sorry, who, yeah, that's one of the most accurate ones I've seen, but there are a lot out there. So yeah, it's terrifying what AI can do, and there are some negatives to that.
I'm not Morgan Freeman.
Oops. There we go. So this is an example as well of AI generated content that's gone wrong. So this is an example from America. It was a newspaper chain who were using an AI service called Lead AI. And basically, I think they were basically using it to write sort of the low-level high school sports reports that don't take much to write, but they're sort of trying to improve efficiency. But this example went viral, and a few others, because there's obviously, you can see at the top line there, they've left in huge huge things that should have been taken out before publishing. And there were other reports that were showing things like that. There was repetition, there was lacking key details, things like the actual dates of the games and the names of players. There was odd language used, which basically made it sound like a robot had written it that didn't know anything about sports. So, you know, AI has its uses, but it's not without its issues and faults. And I think we wouldn't recommend using AI to write articles for you. We don't do this at Conscious. But, you know, if you did decide to do that, it would be something you'd have to make sure you fact checked. You'd have to make sure the writing style matched your brand, tone of voice. You'd need to make sure that, you know, it's there's no mistakes, so that, you know, because if you put something like that out and you're not transparent that it's been written by AI, and somebody finds out, it will kind of breed sort of mistrust with your audience, and it kind of puts people off working with you. So I think it's really important to kind of be aware of these kind of faults with AI. And then this was pointed out to me by Sophia, actually, so thank you, Sophia. The Mirror online is actually showing at the bottom of their article, some of their articles, that they're using an AI tool. So this is the kind of transparency that we're talking about if you're going to use these kind of tools. And also it kind of shows that they're aware that the tools are flawed, and so they're kind of saying, you know, if you can see any errors, let us know. So I think if you're going to use AI for your marketing or social media, it might be a good idea to implement an AI use policy. So Maddie, if we wouldn't mind, thank you. So this is basically, you can add this within your employee handbook. So it just makes people, employees aware that, you know, these are the do's and don'ts for using AI. So according to a 2023 Sprout Social report, 93% of business leaders are aiming to increase AI investments in the next 3 years. So there's clearly an appetite for it, and I think there are clearly some helpful and useful things that you can do with it. But obviously, because there's very little regulation, as a business, if you're going to implement these kind of tools, you need to kind of, you know, be aware of the risks and put things in place to kind of mitigate those risks. So the kind of things that you need to kind of include in your AI use policy would be things like, you know, vetting your AI vendors. So that's outsiders that you kind of use AI tools from, and that would also include AI tools that they use within their business as well. And just that's to make sure that they're kind of following strict regulations and data processing correctly. And then also educating employers about AI input risks. So that means any information that you're putting into AI tools. So for example, if you're going to put some information into ChatGPT, that information then goes out of the business. So you have to be really, you have to make sure that no one's putting any sensitive information in there, whether that's internal business information or it's client information. That should never be put into any AI tools. And then also equally AI output, so anything that goes out into the world. So AI learns from information on the internet. So it basically takes it from anywhere. But sometimes it can access content that is content that is actually the intellectual property of somebody else, or copyright of somebody else, or it's being accessed by illegal sources in the dark web, and you just don't know. This is the trouble with it at the minute. It can also be out of date data as well, because the machine takes time to learn. So if something relatively new has happened, it might not have caught up yet. So it's one of those things where you need to provide some sort of real world use scenarios so that you can make sure that checks are being made, and that can kind of help you avoid reputational and financial damage to your firm. Maddie, can you just click the next the bar for me? Thank you. So this is an example that's actually happening right now. It is a class action lawsuit that's from authors to OpenAI, who created ChatGPT. So basically over 180,000 books have been used without the permission of authors, and they were taken from pirated sources to train AI systems. And I think Meta was involved in it as well. So Meta is using that data set to train their AIs. So authors are kind of slowly finding out that their books have been involved in this data set, and they're kind of joining a class action lawsuit. So it's quite a shocking example of content being stolen for AI purposes. So there is a risk to your reputation if you use content from generative AI that's been plagiarized or is being misused. So there's that, you need to take that into account. And then again, then you need to make it kind of clear in outline in your policy who is responsible for looking after AI. So you should appoint somebody who's kind of keeping up to date with the latest developments, and making sure that they're doing regular audits of any AI tools, and they're keeping the policy up to date so everybody knows where they stand. And then if you're going to use AI, don't just kind of let everybody start using it straight away. Kind of slowly build, gradually field it out to teams or even a couple of people, so that you can kind of address any snags that are that occur from the initial use, and then you can kind of spread it further across the firm after that. It should also be clear in your policy which AI tools have been approved for use within the business and what they are used for, and also what they're explicitly not to be used for. So, for example, we can use AI for content ideation, but we cannot use it to write content. So there should be an explicit, and you can give real examples for that. And then generative tools like ChatGPT that have been used to create important documents. So if you use it to create something like an industry report, it could mean that you might not be able to copyright that content. So like I said, anything you put into it becomes public. So there are, I'm not, this is something that I'm not 100% up to speed with, but there are ways that you can disable certain types of information that you can feed into generative AI so that you can protect any sort of intellectual property rights of any content you create with it. But it's just, be aware that anything you put in there is public. And then for any external marketing, like I've said before, it's really important that you disclose that you have created this content or this image or this video with AI so that people are aware and there's some transparency. And as I said before, Instagram and TikTok, I think, have started to implement some labels on content so that users are aware that this content has been made using generative AI. So yeah, this is a particularly shocking case that I found. It is in America, where an attorney used ChatGPT to research prior cases to support a claim in a personal injury case that was against an airline. But it turned out that 6 of the cases, I think it was out of 8, didn't even exist in real life. So AI can actually make things up as well, which is another thing to be aware of. So the lawyer was actually in a lot of trouble, and also the partner of the firm, because he signed the brief. So they were both fined $5,000, and the case against the airline was dropped. So it wasn't only a financial hit, but a reputational one as well. So another important reason to have an AI policy use at your firm, and make sure, not just from a social media marketing point of view, but any sort of use of AI.
Before we move on, Laura, somebody did ask if there were any tools you'd recommend when using AI to create social media content, and are there any free ones that you know of, or is it just paid ones that we have access to at the moment and that you've used?
At the minute, because I use Hootsuite, which obviously we pay for, and I don't think Hootsuite have you can't get a free account with Hootsuite anymore. But I'm not sure of any free ones. I'm sure there will be, and I know that obviously if LinkedIn are starting to use it within the platform, I'm sure many platforms will follow. But I can have a look after the call and pop those in an email, because I'm sure they do exist.
Perfect. Let's put that in the follow-up email then, and maybe you can do a LinkedIn post about it as well, and we can link.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm going to move on from AI now onto Threads and X, because this has been in the news quite a lot recently. I'm sure you're aware that X, which was actually formerly Twitter, has had a rebrand. Lots of controversial changes have been made, and then Threads appeared, which Mark Zuckerberg touted as the friendly Twitter. So it was launched in July this year. It's a text-based conversation app, so it's very similar to X in the style. And within 5 days, it had 100 million people download or join the platform. So it ended up becoming the most successful app launch of all time. However, it came at a time when Elon Musk was making a lot of the controversial changes, as I said. So he had the brand change. He was talking about removing the function to block people. He was setting limits on how many tweets you could see in a day. He allowed anybody to be verified on Twitter, which people were complaining about, meant it devalued the verification mark. And he started adding more premium features to it. So Threads Meta basically pushed Threads, the launch, early to kind of give people an alternative at a time when they were really not liking what was happening on X. But then Threads had some controversy, because the account is tied to your Instagram account currently. So if you have an Instagram account, you can instantly create a Threads account. It's linked, so you can actually import all your followers from Instagram to Threads. But the controversy was that you can't delete your Threads account without deleting your Instagram account. Now, I know that is being changed, I think, at the end of the year, but I wonder whether that inflated the numbers slightly and made it seem like it was more successful than it actually was. And yeah, so Threads is a little bit different to to X, in terms of you can post up to 500 characters long, you can include links, photos, videos, and then the videos are 5 minutes long, which is double the length of X video. So it tends to be focusing on longer form content than X. So I've done a little comparison here of the differences between X and Threads to see, the different functionalities. So as I said before, I think the focus with Threads was more on the launch over the features, because it's still rolling out some really basic features, like the web app only launched, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So the main thing that I kind of thought with the difference between Threads and X is that it just has a different vibe. It's more friendly, as Mark Zuckerberg said, than X. There seems to be less, arguments at the moment, but it is still a relatively new platform. And like I said, you have a ready-made audience, but it is missing some really key features at the moment. So that X already has. So it makes you wonder how you can use it as a strategic social media marketing tool. So it doesn't have hashtags, it doesn't have a keyword search function, it doesn't have ads. So these are really key things that kind of make the platform. And I think they're testing currently the search function in, I think, Australia and New Zealand at the minute. So I'm assuming that is coming, but it makes you wonder why they released it early without these basic functionalities. So at the minute, I don't see it as a particularly useful social media marketing tool, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on. But there are some changes coming to X as well that might threaten its success, and drive people to look for alternative platforms. So they might move to Threads. So there's talk that they might move to a paid subscription model, so people will have to pay to use X. They're going to start launching more, they start pushing more premium content to people that they can only view if they sign up and pay. And they might remove the ability to block users, which then becomes, a breeding ground for, as I said before, bullying and hate speech and things like that. So, and also it's still early days. There was a report from Sensor Tower that showed that in August, Threads daily active users had dropped by over 80% since the launch, and only 8 million users were on the app, which I think X has about 500 and something million users. So, it's still not a real competitor for X at the moment. But then Elon Musk alluded recently that X users aren't actually posting as much as they were pre-brand change. So it still remains to be seen what's going to happen with these two. So should law firms be on it? Maybe. Big fat maybe. I think if you have a big Instagram audience who are likely to sign up to Threads because it's just easy to do, then it might be worth it, because you might attract all of your followers straight onto there. And you might also attract some followers who've migrated over from X or other platforms. And according to Statista, in January this year, X had 556 million active users. So, and Instagram had 2 billion. So if 25% of those users sign up from Threads, then that instantly becomes as big as X. But that is a big if. So obviously, as I said, the platform is still working on its functionality. It's still lacking. There's an upcoming update that will allow users to delete the account. So we'll have to see how that pans out, whether there's a big dip in users after that. But having said that, we don't see any harm in experimenting with the platform. If you're already posting on X, then why not post the same thing over on Threads and see what kind of engagement you get? It might be worth it. So that's my take on Threads and X. So I'm going to dive into sort of algorithm updates on the various platforms. I'm just going to go for the top 4, as I call them. So these are kind of things that can help you when you're posting on these platforms. So video content is getting boosted, and by this we mean the algorithm, this is on X, sorry, the algorithm will prioritize video content over other content. So if you haven't started making social media videos yet, then now's the time. As I said before, subscription content will start being pushed because they're looking to move to more towards paid models. So that will be interesting to see how that works. Now, tweet lifespan, I think originally used to be about 6 hours. So by lifespan, I mean you put a tweet out there and then it disappears into your feed because, you know, obviously more and more tweets filter into your feed and then it kind of gets lost. That is now extending from 24 to 48 hours. So that kind of has implications for the reach of your posts. So something that might not have been seen by somebody might, you know, if it's extended to 48 hours, you've got an extra 24 hours of potential that somebody might see that post and engage with it. You need to avoid deboosted content on X, and by deboosted content we mean content that will be deprioritized and pushed down. It won't be favored by the algorithm. So this could be certain keywords and topics and actions. So definitely mentions of X competitors, so Threads, and other, in fact, any other social platform. I think it's been said that posts from those platforms will definitely not perform very well. And links that take you out of the platform as well, they won't perform as well as if you're keeping somebody on the platform. So it's worth keeping that in mind. And then scheduling your posts at the right time for maximum reach. I mean, I think that's the same for any channel, really. Make sure you regularly check in with your audience and your posts and make sure that you're getting the most out of it.
Before we move on, Laura, we've had another question, which is, do you think Threads is going to be added to social media scheduling platforms?
I'm not sure, because there are a lot of it took ages for Instagram to be added to social media scheduling platforms. It took a long time, and TikTok, I think, has only just been added to Hootsuite not long ago. So I think it's one of those where everybody is waiting and seeing, because nobody wants to do all of that work for it to then be a failed platform that just they get rid of it, because there have been plenty of social media platforms that have come out and then failed. So possibly, but I couldn't really tell you at the moment, because I think it's just, yeah, it's a wait and see how it pans out, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good answer.
So yeah, Facebook. The Facebook algorithm is prioritizing content for users based on 3 factors. So that is the content source. So it will show users content from familiar sources. So that will be things like friends and family and businesses that they actively follow and actively engage with. Content type, so that will be the preferred format of the user. So again, if they really love videos, then they'll probably be served a lot of videos in their feed. And then post engagement, so posts that have a higher reaction, high interaction, especially from frequent engagers. So it's thinking about, you know, it's important to regularly analyze your content and your audience and ensure you're producing the content that's actually valuable and engaging and being active in groups and stories so that you're frequently seen by as many eyes as possible, I think is key. And then Facebook Reels, as I said before, most platforms are prioritizing video content, and Facebook Reels is no exception. So the algorithm has some key things that you can do to make sure that you rank better. So being entertaining and trend setting, sticking to vertical video, because most people will view these reels on a mobile phone, adding music, using the built-in tools, so that's text, filters and effects, trying different approaches, using good lighting and camera work, and avoiding blurry or watermarked videos and videos with borders. So if you haven't used Reels before, I think probably now is the time. And I've got some tips that I can share with you that I can send after the webinar that are to get the most out of social media videos. And I know it's something that at Conscious we're trying to do more of, and we've got massive plans for students to watch this space. So LinkedIn, I'm going to hand over to Sophia for this one, if that's okay, because she's going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn and Richard van der Blom.
Sure. So hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sophia and I'm the community manager of the Law Firm Marketing Club. And like Laura said, I'm going to hijack this slide to tell you a bit about Richard van der Blom and, of course, share some algorithm tips. So if you haven't already, and if you haven't heard of him, we would really recommend following Richard for all things LinkedIn marketing and personal branding tips. So these 2 images on the screen feature some of his findings and provide an insight into the kind of useful content that he shares. So Richard is all about conducting in-depth algorithm research, and he's one of the leading voices about the platform and on the platform. So from these images, some key things to pull out from his work here. So write for people, but optimize for the algorithm. So in essence, that means write content that your audience are going to resonate with and engage with and value, but then optimize it using keywords and hashtags relevant to both the legal sector and all the subject matter. And then consider what time you're posting. So for us at Conscious, I know that I like to post in commuting time, so early in the morning or late in the afternoon. So think about when people are on their commute trip, on the train, or have 5 minutes before the working day starts. That's when a lot of people are online on LinkedIn. And the next tip is to nurture your posts in the first hour of posting. So by this, we mean make sure you're available, preferably on hand, to reply to any comments that you might receive, engage with people before and after publishing. So other people on your feed, it's not all just about you churning out content. Make sure you're actively engaging with other people. Leave insightful comments on your own post and others. Don't just say thanks or write kind of generic dry comments. Really dig into the subject matter and engage with the post in hand. And then finally from me, on the 22nd of November at 2 p.m, shameless plug here, Richard himself is going to be delivering a 1-hour free webinar for the Law Firm Marketing Club. You guys are all invited, and we will be sending the registration link afterwards. It's going to be an amazing session, and if you have any questions about him or anything else, feel free to drop me a DM on LinkedIn. So back to you, Laura.
Thanks, Sophia. Cool. Okay, so finally, Instagram. So Instagram, it will promote content that inspires conversation. So yeah, I think that's the same on most platforms. You know, the theme seems to be community conversations, things that bring people, that, you know, keep people on the platform and talking with each other. And similarly, ranking original content higher than other like reposted or reshared content. Again, that's quite similar across most of the platforms. I think that doesn't mean you can't reshare content. I think if you are going to reshare content, reshare it with your own thoughts as well. So you're not just resharing, you know, hitting the reshare button and not adding anything to the kind of conversation. But yeah, I think it's right that original content should be ranked higher, I think, than reposted or reshared. And then thinking about stories. So stories is it's the king of Instagram engagement. Basically, most people prefer, and I know this is true of me, when I use Instagram, I prefer stories over scrolling the feed. And the algorithm serves the latest stories from accounts that you engage with the most. So that I have actually seen that working in real life. So I've been in the feed for whatever reason, and I've seen a post from a business that I follow, but I hadn't seen them for a while, and I maybe liked that post. And then lo and behold, the next day, they're in my stories. So I think it definitely is worth doing stories, because you just got that better visibility than you would do in the feed. And then again, this is the same across all platforms, making sure you're scheduling your post to get that maximum reach. So again, just make sure you're analyzing your analytics regularly so that you know when the best time is to post. And then I'm not going to talk about all of these because we are running a little short on time. So we've just kind of picked out some of the sort of newest platforms, social media platforms to watch. And they do various things. Obviously, we can send around the details of these afterwards if you're interested, but I'm just going to talk about a couple. So Discord is an interesting one. So Discord has actually been around for a while. It's not really new, but the functionality of it has changed. So originally, Discord was used for gamers primarily, and gamers used it to kind of chat to each other while they played an online game. And you can create little communities on there. But since the pandemic, they've actually changed the way that it works, and it's not just for gamers now, it's for any communities. So I guess it kind of works a little bit like Clubhouse, in the sense that it's basically an audio platform where you can create communities of people and you can get together and talk about a specific topic. And yeah, you can, you know, some of them are invite only, some of them are public. And yeah, so I think it's an interesting change of tack by the company, but I think it's definitely one to watch because it's quite niche, but I think there's a lot of people already on the platform, whereas when Clubhouse launched, nobody was on it and it was invite only. So Discord is open to anybody. So I think that's definitely an interesting one to watch for law firms. And Blue Sky is a platform it was created by the ex-Twitter CEO or ex-CEO, Jack Dorsey. And it works pretty similarly to Twitter in terms of the functionality and the layout. But yeah, it's just kind of an alternative. It's just basically for public conversations, gives creators independence from platforms, and develops the developers the freedom to build and users a choice in their experience. And I think it's built on a decentralized platform, so it means that people have visibility and transparency about what is happening on the platform and the changes that are happening on it. So I think that's the kind of thing that people are looking for, especially with all of the nonsense happening at X at the minute. And one that isn't on here, but I think is interesting, is WhatsApp. And obviously, again, not a new platform, and not really, I don't think many people think of it as a social media platform, but it's doing some interesting things. And I came across a stat about Instagram that really interested me, that most of the activity happens in DMs on Instagram with a lot of people. And I think that direct one-to-one conversation, private, is really important to a lot of people. So people are turning to WhatsApp, and you can actually be a business on WhatsApp and have WhatsApp channels that you can talk to clients with. And they've just launched, but it doesn't seem to be working, because I had a look for it and it didn't work for me, but it's very, very new. They started launching channels, which is essentially looks a bit like stories. So businesses could kind of share story style videos to the channels, and it appears within people's WhatsApp. So that's an interesting one, because you're reaching people. I mean, I admit that I'm in WhatsApp quite a lot. So it's reaching people where they are, as opposed to kind of battling against, algorithms on other platforms. So an interesting one to watch. But yeah, the other ones I can send across some details about those after the call finishes. But yeah, just some interesting ones to watch out for. And finally, we're just going to have a look at some trends for social media for 2024. So some of these are actually trends that have been the same for the past few years, but they're no less important. So definitely user-generated content. So basically that means having users on the platform talk about your brand or your services or whatever it might be, because that's actually quite powerful. If somebody is talking about you and recommending you, and you can share that content, that's really important. So it's important to make sure you're monitoring your social media for mentions of your firm, and a lot of the social media management platform tools will help you to do that automatically. Another AI tool. And then third-party content. So you don't have to create something original for every post. You can build an expert image by becoming a content creator. So you can actually share the latest piece of news, but give your expert opinion on it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. But this is best done on personal pages, I think, rather than company pages. And kind of giving your individual thought leadership thoughts on it. This is an interesting term that I came across, edutainment content, which I think is actually quite important for something exciting for the legal sector, because I think a lot of legal sector content on social media is edutainment content, because you're kind of sharing your expertise and you're kind of breaking down barriers with the legal jargon, etc. So I think it's important to be sharing that content now and in 2024. So that's things like you can do live Q&As, you could do short videos on a specific topic, you could do top tips that you can share throughout the week or month or whatever it might be. Basically, you need to think save-worthy content, so content that people save because it's useful for them to know and keep on hand for whenever they need it. So that's a really interesting one to look out for. And employee advocacy as well. So this has been true for a long time, but your employees are your best asset, really, in terms of humanizing your brand, demonstrating the values that you have as a business. And it can also help with hiring practices. And I know that that's kind of a key challenge at the moment in the legal sector. So yeah, obviously it's competitive at the minute. So, a business that can show content from happy, engaged employees has a serious advantage. So, you know, make sure you use your employees as much as possible and share their content. Businesses all talk about sustainability, so obviously sustainability is quite high on the list and people's thoughts at the moment because of climate change. And I think more people are interested in dealing with businesses who have good eco credentials, they've got good sustainability practices, and they're doing more each year to kind of improve their carbon footprint, etc. So, and it also kind of gives you a common ground and some common values with your audience as well. So I think that's important to kind of think about putting out there on social media in the coming year. And social media as a customer service, again, this has always been the case. Using it as, people use social media as a touch point with a lot of businesses, and I think because usually they get a quicker answer. But obviously this only works if you've got the tools in place or the resources in place to kind of deal with that. So again, making sure that your tools are in place that you can monitor any comments or questions or complaints or reviews or whatever that have been left, and you can do that with social listening tools. And then, you know, the use of AI tools will continue to grow, which we've just, you know, we've talked about AI at the minute. I mean, there's lots of use of it, but I am sure there will be many more uses as the years go by. So yeah, it's definitely one to think about and consider whether you want to implement it within your business. And then authenticity is still key, and that has again been for a long time now. Nobody wants to deal with fakery. So, you know, make sure that you're authentic in everything you post and you're not kind of just people pleasing. You know, you're being very honest and upfront and transparent, and you know, people want to engage with that kind of thing over, you know, and that could be posts about your employees engaging with a charity that they're really involved with, or you know, the team building activities or days out, things like that humanize your brand. I think people really resonate with that, so that is another thing to keep continuing with in 2024. So yeah, that was everything, and I think we've just got 4 minutes left. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions now, feel free to shoot them over.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Laura. I don't know about everyone else, but that hour went very quickly for me. And I think 2024 trends, that's a lot of good stuff to start implementing for the remainder of 2023 and then going into 2024 as well. We've just got a few questions that are more generic social media questions that we were asked before the session. So we'll just run over those for the remaining few minutes, unless anybody has any other questions that they want to put in the chat or come off mute and ask. But whilst we're waiting for that, I'm just going to go through the questions that we had submitted beforehand. So the first one is, if my firm is just starting out with social media, which platform do you recommend using first?
That's a tricky one, but I think it very much depends what you're doing as a firm. So I think family law firms they do quite well on Facebook and Instagram, purely because of the demographics that tend to be on there, but also because you can kind of share a bit more lifestyle-y content, if that makes sense. So things like employment law may be better served on LinkedIn. I think it very much depends on what you're trying to promote service-wise and what you do as a firm, but also I think it also depends where your audience are. So it might be that you have to join a couple and then decide you don't need the other two and you just need that one, or you need a couple. I think it very much depends on what it is you're doing and what you're looking to achieve. So it might be a bit of experimentation to begin with. But yeah, I think you just need to find your niche, I think.
Perfect, thank you. And the next one was, which social media platform have you seen to be most successful for law firms, or what type of content?
Again, I think the same as before. It just depends on what you're posting and who you're posting to and where they are. But I know that the type of content that tends to perform quite well is the more humanized, you know, post about what the business are up to behind the scenes, you know, people getting promoted, people getting thank yous from clients, going on days out as a team or raising money for charity. I think those are definitely the kind of content that performs the best, like, in my opinion, that I've seen. So I think you just need to sprinkle some of that interspersed with, your more educational content. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that's what does best for us at Conscious as well, the pictures and videos that have the people in and showcase sort of what we're about. And then finally, somebody said they're not sure how to decide which content is performing well on their social media platforms. Do you recommend any analytics tools or social media audits?
Yeah, so most platforms have like built-in analytics that you can look at, and I think it's important to kind of pick a goal, and that way you can pick a metric to then track. So if you're looking to raise brand awareness, it might be that you're looking to track followers, for example. So then you would track that metric within your analytics. If you're looking to promote a certain service, then you would track those posts that's promoting that service and track the engagement on it. So that might be number of likes, comments, shares, etc. So yeah, I think there are sort of native tools, but then we use Hootsuite at Conscious, which has built-in analytics as well. And I'm sure that all the other social media management tools have analytics tools as well. So yeah, it's just kind of deciding what it is you want to achieve and then tracking a metric, and then you can kind of build upon that as you go forward.
Perfect. That's all the questions that we were asked beforehand, and we've not had anything else in the chat whilst we've been talking. So I don't know if you just want to share your top tip for social media, Laura, and then we'll stop recording and everyone will be free to leave.
Oh, one tip for social media. Oh, I don't know. I think don't post for posting's sake. So only post if you've got something valuable or engaging to say. Like, I think people get too wrapped up in, oh, I need to post like every single day, but I don't think you do. I think if you're posting you're posting the right kind of content that people are really interested in, and you're actually optimizing that content efficiently, I don't think you need to be posting every single day on every single platform. I think it's just quality over quantity, I think, would be the main one.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks everyone for attending today's session. I'm going to stop the recording